Hello, welcome to the Social Justice Forum. I am your host, Daren Jaime. Thank you for joining us. Now, if you're asking the question, what is the show all about? We bring you a forum discussing and providing deeper understanding of the issues and inequities that so many people face, from systemic inequalities to pressing social problems. Our guests provide multiple perspectives and insights, helping us better understand and address the challenges. So, we invite you to stay connected to us. The Social Justice Forum starts now. And we are back. Upwardly Global is dedicated to breaking down employment barriers for low-income immigrant, refugee, and asylee professionals, fostering their integration into the U.S. economy. Now, since the year 2000, Upwardly Global has equipped unemployed or underemployed newcomers with essential skills, career coaching, and valuable social connections, helping them rebuild their lives and pursue successful careers. Joining me now, the president and CEO of Upwardly Mobile, Jina, I should say Krause-Vilmar, and we thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Daren. You did a great job pronouncing my name.
Did I get it right? 100% right?
It's really close. It's really close.
Okay, don't kill me. I'm glad to have you with us.
Same here.
When we talk about this, really honestly looking at the situation of immigrant and refugee professionals, we do have immigrants that come with skill sets, refugees that come with skill sets. But I know that part of what you're doing is really sharpening them and preparing them for life right here in the U.S.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people realize that close to half of immigrants coming into the country today have a bachelor's degree or higher, and yet 1 out of 4 of them remain un or underemployed. These are people who are your rideshare driver, they're delivering your groceries. We've had individuals in the city of New York who have been homeless on the streets collecting recycling in order to earn 20 bucks a day in order to feed themselves. So these are the individuals we're talking about. And yet, at the same time, they're engineers, they're data analysts, they're doctors from their home country, and they're just unable to get back into their professions in the United States.
What are some of the barriers that we may not be so familiar with when it comes to that? Because as you talk, I think if you got a doctor, you've got people who've got great credentials, but they're just not from here. To assimilate and be able to get a job, somebody says, well, that could possibly happen, but we know that there's this time difference between the time a person looks for a job, actually lands a job. But I want to talk about that because you talk about the high level of credibility that a lot of candidates come with, and what are some of the barriers that we're seeing out there?
Well, so one of the biggest barriers is career navigation. So where do you plug into the market?
Right.
A lot of people do assume our community are plug and play. The same reaction that you have is like, well, this should be easy for them. But the reality is you can be educated and poor in the United States. And usually if you are, you're part of our community. So career navigation is one of the biggest barriers, which is what jobs do I qualify for? Am I competitive? Do I need to reskill or upskill? What job titles do I start with? Another one is professional networks. When you arrive, you're pretty much coming with nothing. And so you have to rebuild those professional networks, knowing that 85% of jobs are secured through an introduction. So that also means, how do you understand the market? How do you make those relationships if you're actually living in communities that don't have access? And then the third is, English language. Actually, a lot of our people are English language proficient, but they're still nervous about using their English language in a professional environment. I cannot tell you what a stigma it feels like to have an accent and or to present in a way that is different from the way a US born individual would present. And then I would say the last biggest hurdle is we have a very specific way of approaching work. It's a US style. It has to be learned. It's not organic. We help our community understand that. But on the flip side, employers oftentimes lock this untapped talent out because they have a preference for made in America. They
Mm-hmm.
have a preference for people who have US degrees, US work experience. That's what they can understand and unpack. And so trying to unpack their skills using a skills first approach is a real challenge.
Yeah. I know you do a lot of advocacy. and talk to us a little bit about the advocacy movement and really raising your voice to create an awareness about this in a context that sometimes people aren't so familiar with.
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest things is that our community exists and they're significant enough that we should be talking about them. 29% of the workforce today are immigrants. And so that trend is only going to increase over time. And what we find is that immigrants are not centered, whether it's in workforce, whether it's in community colleges, whether it's in the cities or states. And as a result, the kinds of service they are getting are really low level. So you're going into a job center and you're getting service that is a rapid attachment job, getting a job as a janitor, if you're lucky, maybe a course as a forklift driver, but not that sort of nuanced coaching support you need to understand, well, what does that actually mean if I'm a professional, if I'm a nurse, if I'm an IT professional? So that's one thing. Our people don't have access to service within the system, and that's something we're advocating for. The second is that people understand that this community is here, they face barriers, and we need to address those barriers. So we're really excited that the Department of Labor just released a report, I'm talking 1 week new, that talks specifically about the barriers that this community faces and what the country, what the federal government needs to start thinking about in order to address those barriers. And then the last one is, listen, our people are in every occupation and industry you can think of. They're in regulated industries and they're in less regulated industries. Regulated industries are like law, physicians, engineering. Less regulated are HR, marketing, things like that. So if we're looking at regulated industries, and we know we have huge healthcare shortages, we have 2,000 internationally trained doctors who are sitting on the sidelines in the Bronx, right? During COVID, who could not even volunteer to help at hospitals because they were not considered eligible, right? That is a travesty. Not to mention, we've got healthcare shortages across the state. We've got healthcare shortages across the country. 99 million people live in an area where they cannot access a primary health care provider in their local area. And yet we have all this talent sitting on the sidelines, and we have limited imagination around how do we create a pathway for these individuals to enter back into their market, knowing that we want quality control, sure, but how do we eliminate those hurdles, that bureaucracy, reducing it from needing to spend 5 to 6 years to get back to being a doctor to you spending 2 years to get back into being a physician. So those are some of the advocacy that we work on.
Yeah, I'm bad journalist here because you talked about the government releasing their report and talk about barriers. So I'm not familiar with that, but can you give us a little bit of insight when we talk about the barriers that exist? Because I think you touched on two things that I want to talk about. One is the barriers that we're not familiar with, and number two is what are the ways to navigate? I think you gave, I'll come back to it in a second, but you gave an analogy of having 2,000 doctors that are right here that are available to go to work, but they can't go to work because of. So what would be the best practice in terms of getting boots on the ground? And also let's deal with the barriers. So barriers first.
Barriers first. So one of the barriers is English language, so professional English language. We need cities and states to be investing a lot more in English language support. We know that's like the number one barrier for people to be able to get better wage jobs, especially amongst the immigrant community. Actually, out of the 170,000 migrants who have been bussed into the city, almost 25% of them are college educated, right? So those who are coming from Venezuela in particular have college degrees. And yet language is one of the barriers that they face in terms of getting better paid jobs. So we have to invest more in English language. We have to invest in career navigation and licensing guidelines. Like states need to take some control over, if this is the talent we have, how do we reduce the steps they need to take? And how do we get them into their jobs quicker? But somebody has to navigate them towards that. And that has to be a coach, that has to be a navigator, or you need to have licensing guides that sort of help people understand, okay, this is step one, this is step two, this is step three. And that's hard because every state is different. So every state needs to take this on, and guidelines are constantly changing. So it needs to be constantly updated. But there's no centralized place where you can go to as an immigrant whether you're in the country or you're in the state, to sort of say, okay, where do I start if I'm a nurse? And that information in and of itself would be transformative. And then there's one of the things we've been doing is how do we get people into work-based learning opportunities that are at the mid and the high skill level? So we have internship programs, we have apprenticeship programs. People are familiar with that, but that's really to get your foot in the door for an entry level job in a career. What do we do when you're returning into the market and you're needing to go to the mid and the high skill level? So one of the things we did in response to COVID was partner with New York Presbyterian Hospital, and we created a returnship program where at this stage we have 100 immigrant refugees and asylees who are working within the hospital system to support the hospital. And these are people who are working full-time jobs. They initially started for 6 months paying a full-time equivalent of, a full-time person's salary, and they were doing multiple things. Hospitals need people in multiple jobs. They need people who are in HR, who are in technology, who are on the hospital floor, who are, doing the data analytics. They need all of that. And so we've been able to place people that way and really allow the hospital to understand this talent. And I will say it is a learning curve.
Mhm.
Not all employers get it. And so that's been a journey on both sides.
Yeah. Stereotypes, stigma, rhetoric, that can be a downfall for the work that you do. We talked about the states not too long ago. When you look at states such as Florida, you look at southern states that aren't too uh, accommodating to the immigrant population, the refugee population. How much of a setback is that for the work that you're doing?
It's a huge setback. I mean, work authorization is a real challenge. And I want to be clear. Anybody who lives in New York City, who's been on a subway, who sees migrants, usually women with their children, selling candy, the reason they're doing that is because they don't have the legal right to work. They have to wait 6 months after applying for their asylum case. They have to wait 6 months before they can even apply for work authorization. And then they have to wait another month in theory, because the reality is there's a huge backlog. So what we see is people go a year without having the ability to work. And that's crazy because we have real labor shortages in this country, and we have people who need, as you say, boots on the ground doing the work. So I think that's a challenge. You've seen states, especially New York City in particular, really pushing the federal government to sort of say work authorization should be allowed quicker within 3 months. They shouldn't have to do a second process to apply. They should apply directly with their asylum case. And they've made some movement around refugees. And now they're making some movement, hopefully, with asylees. But the reality is a lot of people have to renew their work authorization after 2 years. This makes employers nervous. It makes employers nervous to hire talent where they don't understand their work authorization and their immigration status. And even though they're legally here, needing to constantly understand, do they have to renew? When do they have to renew? How long is it going to take for them to renew? We do have job seekers who lose their job because they can only apply for renewal of work authorization a month before the deadline, but it takes them 6 months to get it.
Right. And that's a huge barrier right there in itself.
Absolutely. And the ironic thing is USCIS is the institution that provides for visas and work authorization. But the reality is they just went digital. They did
Mm.
everything on paper. And so they just went digital like 1 or 2 months ago. So hopefully that's a good sign of like what we can expect in terms of speed, but it's also a scary sign in terms of how much further we got to go.
Yeah, and the word on the street was there is a backlog. I mean, since COVID, there has been a tremendous backlog already. So if you're new to the list, there's a chance that that increased wait time will be present for you. So a lot to contend with. Talk to me about the rewards of the work. I mean, obviously, seeing people be able to come to this country, to be able to find employment, to be able to find their footing, it's got to be for you also a great feeling.
It's an incredible feeling. It's also just an incredible story, right? Because immigrants are not only good for our economy, but they help us build resilient communities. They become homeowners. They engage in civic engagement and volunteer. They attend church. There's such a richness that, it's great to see when people are able to give back. The other thing that's really interesting is that, when somebody like me, hate to say it, When I do economically better, I move out of my neighborhood into a better neighborhood, a nicer neighborhood, a neighborhood with better security.
Right.
Immigrants don't. They stay in their neighborhoods and they reinvest in those neighborhoods. So they're really bringing up those communities. So it's great to see. It's great to see that people are hopeful. I mean, you cannot imagine the despair of knowing you worked tooth and nail to get a degree, a medical degree, and in some cases, as women, you fought even harder for that. And then to come to the land of opportunity and to be told the best you're going to be as a janitor, that is such a devastating thing around your own identity and self-worth. And then to be able to say, actually, I can make it here, I can contribute, and I can give back is huge. I'll just give you a quick story. We had a a colleague from Turkey. He was a refugee that came here. He had to leave because of democratic protests he was involved in. And he divorced his wife so that she wouldn't get in trouble. And he left her and his 1-year-old daughter in Istanbul. He came to the United States. He worked 6 days a week, 18 hours a day as a rideshare driver, delivering groceries, was barely able to make ends meet. And he got a job within 3 months of working with us as the lead data analyst at ADP. And he was able to bring his wife, his daughter. He likes to say he's the only man he knows that's married the same woman twice. And he's excited that the daughter's in daycare and childcare. And now he's trying to get his wife to become a data analyst because, that's what immigrants do. Once we make one pathway, we try to get everybody in that same pathway.
And Jina, as we talk a little bit about, advocacy and the work that's going on right now, really having somebody be acclimated to society really is huge. Having them come into the workforce, having a job, having that stability. Give us an inside look as to that process. We talked about somebody who's come and actually put a whole family, lost his family, got his family back. But that act of stability, talk to us about what that means in the life of the immigrant/refugee.
Yeah, I mean, so how we work with our community really is oftentimes they come to us, they need to be work authorized. We ensure that they have a certain level of English language to be competitive in the professional market. If they don't, we have partners around the city who also help us top up their English language so that they can get to that point. And then we look at what that career journey, building out a career plan would look like. The reality is most of our people will need to work a transition job. It's a low wage job to get food on the table, to put a roof over their head. Oftentimes they don't have access to internet or devices, so they'll use the libraries in order to be able to do the job search and apply for jobs. And then we work with them to build up that career plan, not only it's okay to take that short-term, immediate job you need, but to continue to invest at least 10 hours a day or 10 hours a week in that job search. And so then we work with them not only to help them meet other people in their industry, do mock interviews and speed networking events, but we also build out a career plan that helps them understand what jobs they would be eligible for and competitive for. We give them coaching on how do you design a marketable US style resume? How do you market yourself? How do you build a network? These are concepts that actually don't really translate across cultures and countries because they're not needed or expected. But in the US, the US style of storytelling is very critical. And so being able to do that well is important. And so we train them on that, and then we help them all the way through the interview and the salary negotiation. And what it looks like is on average, people come to us earning $5,000 a year, and they leave earning on average $65,000 a year in their jobs. Obviously, our retention rates are really high. So 1 year after retention, they're still in those jobs, 90% of them. And many of them, of course, go on to get promoted or to change to better jobs. And then they're also reinvesting in their communities and they're reinvesting in their families. We have a lot of people, for example, in IT, who will train people in their apartment complexes on, basic data science. We have community members who do taxes. That's their specialization, and they'll do free tax returns for low-income communities. And so I think the important part is there's a huge ripple effect when we get this right.
Yeah, and the give back, really, it's great to hear the give back that goes on, even with the skill set, and sometimes not even having the job yet. The give back is still present. So for somebody who wants to come, find out about how I can be a part of upwardly mobile. What is the criteria for immigrants and refugees?
Yeah. So you have to be work authorized in the United States. You have to have been here for less than 7 years, because it is really hard actually to trans somebody back into a professional workforce or back into their career if they've been out longer. You need to have a certain level, you need to be English language proficient, and you need to have had an associate's degree or higher, with at least 6 months of work experience in your home country. And that's all that you have to do in order to be eligible for our programs. We're also working with the city, a couple of their job centers, to train their coaches on also how to provide these services. Because, as I mentioned before, so many of the recent arrivals are mixed skilled. And so making sure that they're also able to get access to service.
Yeah. Are you satisfied with what you're seeing by way of workforce inclusion? Because we know it's still an uphill battle.
I mean, first of all, immigrants aren't on the map. We're not on the DEI map. We're not on the workforce map. If we are, only people consider us for low wage work. That's all we're really expected to do. We're expected to start from the bottom. We're expected to start from scratch. Everything we were before we came here is zero. And that continues to be the case. And our workforce is designed that way. And, these coaches, these job centers, they have an uphill battle. They don't have enough staff to provide the level of service that they want to provide. And so how are we helping them to be smarter? How are we getting technology in their hands that they can leverage? And then how are we allowing the coaches to be excellent?
And I want you to reiterate for our viewers, this is probably the most educated group that we are seeing in generations really come across to look for employment, to find employment here. The education rate is right there.
100%. I mean, there was a recent report that said, a majority of immigrants coming into the country now have at least a high school degree or higher, not to mention the 45% who have a bachelor's degree or higher. I think oftentimes we have a lot of assumptions. I mean, Mexicans who have come into the United States, 50% of them have a college degree. And so this is a very different demographic of people. Even when we're thinking about refugees, a lot of refugees today are also coming from middle income countries, countries like Syria, countries like Venezuela, countries like Ukraine. They have high education levels, they have robust markets. And so that is a mixed flow of people that we're seeing. And yet our systems are set up to assume that really people should start from scratch.
Yeah. So what do you predict seeing as we move towards the summer? Are we going to see an influx of people? Do you participate? I mean, do you or anticipate seeing an influx of people? How does the summer look for you?
I mean, most of the influx came from buses from the southern border, and I do think that's going to slow down because of the tightening of the border that's happened already, which in some ways is a shame. I will tell you, Daren, we get calls from states like Utah or Ohio that say, "Hey, we know you guys have a ton of immigrants. If you guys can't handle them, can you send them our way?" Right? And how do we start creating relocation programs for states that do want them? And these are purple and red states. And so I think the big point here is the labor market is tight. People are starving for talent. But if we can't get this right in New York City, right, what
Right.
does that mean about us? I mean, we are the country's leader when it comes to immigrant inclusion and it comes to a diverse society. Like, we can't turn away people and say, you can't come here. We have to say is we're going to build models to demonstrate that everybody can thrive and create shared prosperity. Because when we do, out of the 1,000 people we support back into jobs a year, they generate sort of $74 million in income spending. And so there's a huge ripple effect when we get it right.
Were you able to get any takers to go to Utah? I mean, obviously that's a little ways away, but I mean, how did that work out?
Well, the reality is we don't do relocation because we don't want to be accountable for how
Right.
they experience what they experience there. But Utah is very creative. They've already developed a pathway where they're able to now get Ukrainian refugees in Poland to come directly to the state of Utah if they can find them jobs there.
Wow.
So they haven't given up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's pretty innovative. So shout out to Utah for doing what they do. Before we go, I want to get a couple of things. First of all, for people who want more information, what do they do about going and getting connected with you?
Oh, we have a great website. upwardlyglobal.org. And you can find us there. You can apply for our program there. You can also volunteer there. You can also donate there. We have multiple ways people can engage.
And it is the first and longest serving national organization that's actually helping individuals restart their career and bring their skills and perspectives to the U.S. workforce. And so Jina's been talking to us for the last several minutes. And certainly before we go, you get the final word and anything you want to share.
I just want to share that, when we are diverse and inclusive, it creates prosperity for all of us. So we should look at this as a win-win.
Well, Jina, thank you so much for being with us. Appreciate having you, and certainly continue the great work that's going on. President and CEO of Upwardly Global. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Daren.
All righty. We are going to take a quick break, but guess what? We got more coming up right after this.
Hello, BronxNet. Happy 30 years. 30-year anniversary. Boy, that went by fast. And also, my 10 years here at BronxNet has gone by even faster. I have a show called Just Give Me the Mic. My name is Deborah Coco. And I just love everything about BronxNet. What I've learned here, I've actually taken my studio production class, my field production class, and doing a show here has opened up so many avenues for me. It led me to acting and meeting some incredible people. I've been hosting and just having an incredible ride. So I still love coming to the studio and having my face-to-face interviews just like it was day one when I came into the studio. BronxNet has opened up so many opportunities for people within our community. But nonetheless, happy 30th anniversary, and keep on helping people to create their own dreams within the media industry.
I remember when the Bronx did not really have a media outlet properly representing the people of the Bronx.
BronxNet provides for the community by being a community where people can be empowered to share their voices.
We are in a really great place technologically. We've got all the resources that we need to be effective.
Whether it's through cameras, storytelling, editing, we have provided those services for 30 years.
BronxNet's mission is to be a voice for the community.
To educate, to inform, and to inspire.
And you can be a part of it. We've built studios for you.
Hey everyone, it's your girl Kat from the Kitty Rose Lifestyle, also from The Next Chapter, where we discuss shades of gray every week right here at BronxNet, Saturdays at 11 p.m. Wow, 30 years. 30 years of BronxNet public access television. I'm a girl from Brooklyn and came to the Bronx 25 years ago, started my journey on BronxNet on public access television in 2016, and BronxNet is where I got my start. BronxNet, I feel like, is a home away from home. They support all of my endeavors, and I wouldn't have been able to be on any of the other channels if it wasn't for the fundamentals that I learned right here at my start here at BronxNet. So I am so appreciative. My son says I should stop telling people I'm from Brooklyn because I've been here now, Bronx strong, for 22 years. So I'm so grateful, and I wish you much success in 30 years, 30, 30, 30, 30, 30, 30, 30, 30 more, because public access is necessary so that people like myself can have a voice. Yes, BronxNet, it's your girl Kat from Kitty Rose. Check me out every Saturday at 11 p.m. right here, Channel 68, The Next Chapter, where we discuss shades of gray. Mwah.
Organizing to be united and resilient, known as Our Place, is making significant strides in strengthening family support as well as community engagement. The center serves as a beacon of hope, offering a warm and inviting space where neighbors connect, contribute, and support one another. We are pleased now to be joined by the Senior Director of Community Leadership Program at Grand Windham, Dr. Emily Lopez, and owner of the Kiki Boutique, Chamaine Lopez. Thank you so much for being with us.
Hello.
How y'all doing?
Good.
So great work that you're doing, in really enriching the community, if you will. We were just talking about refugees and how their lives are being, enriched. For you, enrichment in a different kind of way. Explain.
So our approach is really to support the family, and it's a really important piece of making sure that we are providing for the entire family. So in order to support children, we have to support families, and that's really the foundation of the work that we do at Our Place.
Yeah, and that wraparound service that you provide for families, share.
So it's not necessarily wraparound, it's more of an approach to reduce isolation for communities. What happens is that we have services for children, services for adults, it's all compartmentalized. At Our Place, what we do is that we provide for the entire family. So whatever that looks like, and we provide help that's helpful. And what that means for us is that we have conversations with the community members. They tell us what's helpful to them, not we create something so that we think it's helpful to them. So that's important. That is really the foundation of the work. And so, looking at all of the ways that we can do that is always interesting. Something from having a simple cup of coffee. So you can come into the center, have a cup of coffee, have tea. You don't need to speak to anyone at the center to ask for anything. You can plug in your phone because your phone just went dead and you have to go to another agency and you don't want to talk to anybody. That is okay too. So that's the home-like environment where you don't have to fill out an application. You don't have to answer a lot of questions to get the support that you find that you will need from us.
Yeah. Chamaine, a little bit about your work.
So I am a custom fashion designer, innovative. I have been designing now for about 7 years, self-employed for about 5 now. And I came across the FEC Center because community wanted to sew. And I now teach sewing classes. So I came on board with the FEC, and it's been great to see how the actual course is helping families come together. What excites me is right now we don't have children due to the mechanical side of dealing with a sewing machine and needles and scissors, but we are bringing in a lot of men and women. And a lot of times when you think of sewing, you always think of maybe like a woman sewing, even though there's a difference from a seamstress and a tailor.
Right.
But I'm seeing couples come in, they're working together, or just men by themselves, and they're actually engaging and wanting to sew, and it's really good.
Yeah. An interesting way to really impact families and well-being. I mean, for you, sewing and really bringing it all together. But these type activities, these type things, really have an opportunity of stabilizing sometimes what is very broken.
That's right. So one of the things that we do with community is create a common language. So a lot of how we do that is through a framework called appreciative inquiry. Right? We can always talk about the Bronx and as a negative topic. We don't. We lift up. We also work with community to elevate their voices. We don't work from a place of there is no hope. We work from a place where there is talent in the neighborhood. There are dreams in the neighborhood. Let's lift up those dreams. So even our instructors who are from the community, we don't work to get people from outside. We develop folks from the community. Right. So even with Chamaine, we had this opportunity to take her skills and create a curriculum.
Yes.
So we created the curriculum together, and that is what she's teaching. So through that, that's the 5-week course that we're offering. But that is one part of the work, right? So we have, yes, we can develop skills. That's great. But it's developing the support that community says that they want and need.
Right.
So we do some coaching, which she can talk about. We also do a celebration of completion of those courses, which
Ceremony.
are huge.
Right.
And so that gives community and the adults in the community an opportunity to really look at things that they wanted to do all along, and no one allowed or gave the space to create that platform to build up those dreams. So that's what Appreciative Inquiry does. I mean, it is a framework, but it offers us an opportunity to develop different language and work with each other so that we can continue to build what you want to build, not what I want to build or what I think you may want to build, right?
Yeah.
Because that gets confusing. Tell me what you want. Let me help, give you the help that you find helpful, and then we will continue to go from there.
Dr. Emily talked a little bit about the coaching component.
Yes.
And I want you to elaborate a little bit on that.
So during the 5-week course, we, like she said, we built up a curriculum of how the steps to take to be able to learn how to sew. And a lot of the students, when they've completed their 5-week, because the courses sometimes might require to make a tote bag, maybe a blouse, pants. So when the 5-week of the course is up, that we have an extra week for coaching for people who felt like maybe they missed something or they needed a little extra work or help with something, so we do that. And then we also have a ceremony when they're actually getting a certificate and they're excited. They also get a micro grant after the end of the course, so they can be able to buy them a sewing machine. Some of them might have a sewing machine but never didn't know how to sew.
Right.
So then they can buy a mannequin or other accessories to learn how to sew or help with their sewing kit. But it's awesome.
I mean, it is. And I think it's, you have a completion ceremony, you say, and then
Yes.
so people have the opportunity to really, go through and have a great celebration.
Feel empowered, know they've accomplished something and completed the actual course that they were interested in doing.
Right.
So it's great.
So all of the sessions, we have obviously the tailor and the seamstress, but we also have now barbershop. We also have a community kitchen. We have a second level to the sewing class. So these are things that community is telling us that they want. So that's why we're bringing it in. But all of the sessions, and also a real fundamental piece to it is, how do you run your business? So there's a class on how you run your business.
Right.
How do you sell? How do you do a pop-up shop? So these things are really important and not always available to our community. But we have it, and it is free to the community. We're not charging anything. And with the micro grant, it is not actual money, but it is items that you will need for your business. So if you have a developing business and your marketing is not necessarily up to par, at least to your standards,
Right.
so we can offer that as an opportunity to build up. So that money can go towards your marketing. Or it could go to a machine, or it could go to hair clippers now that we have our barbershop class. So that micro grant, we're also looking at opportunities where community can see that, yes, you may not be able to get a loan right now, but let's start up your business, and this $200 will be a nice start.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So what do we find when we come to Kiki's boutique?
Basically, being that I'm a custom designer, it's more so of what people actually want when they come to me. They show me what they want. And then we have consultations where we can just build. Like right now, I'm in the middle of teaching sewing classes and prom season. So you know how that can go.
Yes.
The girls, the prom girls are like brides.
Yeah.
So they come to me with their ideas, and I help bring them to life.
Wow. Well, I know 'tis the season, so
Yes.
you got to be up to here with.
Yes.
Yeah. she said yes. The skill sets that people develop are really invaluable, right? I think when you talk about having the opportunity, there's a lot more. So many times, I think we were talking about in this last segment, that people lack skill sets, right? But to be able to walk away with one and then come away enjoying it and then putting it to use and possibly, potentially, having a career out of that, you've seen it happen.
And
So-
bring, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And bring it home.
Right.
Right.
Because a lot of the students that I have, they will learn and then be like, yeah, I can't wait to go home and show my daughter or teach my granddaughter. So that's even exciting in itself. The fact that they can now learn a skill and then implement it at home. It's good. It keeps out of that isolation, right?
Right.
And I would just say, to push our thinking, that skills are there. In the community, what we don't have always is the opportunity to continue to build up those skills. So, we found our amazing teacher, right? She's from the community and she had the skills. We have our business career coach, and he's been in the community for years. He actually developed our logo a long time ago, and now he's running these amazing classes. And so, again, they're there. It's bringing and creating a platform for a community to continue to lift themselves up in a way that they can continue to demonstrate and not feel afraid.
Right.
Because we have a space where it's small enough that we can run several classes, small enough that you can ask those questions and not feel uncomfortable or shame. You can work through your fear. Like even the food handler's license, we have a food handler certificate class. And taking the exam is a little scary.
That
but
book is big.
it gets big. And
She
so,
said big.
yeah, so those fears you can work on through your coaching. You can work one-on-one with a coach. You can work with your group. So again, it's reducing that isolation so you don't feel like you're not going to be able to make it, that you had this dream a long time ago. We're going to help you bring that out, and we're going to help you create that.
Yeah, and Chamaine, as a coach, I think one of the things that you bring to the table, you help me with this, is that the ability to help somebody say, listen, you can do this, even though it looks insurmountable, that you walk alongside them
Yes.
to help them get across the finish
So
line.
I'm happy you mentioned that because that's something I did want to speak about, but I was a little nervous today.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
That's one of the things I stress the most in my course because learning a new skill sometimes can be very tedious, especially when you feel like, oh, I can't get it, forget it. So that's one of the things that I push the most in the class is please do not give up. It's a lot of times where from week 1, they'll be like, I can't get it. And week 5, they're like, I'm a designer.
Right.
So that right there just does everything for me in a sense. But like each time that I'm dealing with an actual student and they're like struggling with a certain thing, sitting down with them and being able to give them that sense of somebody's actually here helping me, wanting me to learn and getting it is a good feeling. And when they get it, it's like, it's great.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. And there's nothing better than as a coach to watch somebody else and the
Yes.
light go on. And for yourself, obviously, the transformation of lives, right? Because that's really what this boils down to. The name of the show is Social Justice, right? And I tell people all the time that that social justice has a variety of different ways that you can really go at it. And when you look at giving people life skills and arming them with resources, that is social justice because there's so many places that don't and don't want you to have. So a word about just, the work that you guys do in that area, because in many ways, like I say, it's justice.
Right. So I so appreciate that you put it in that form because it's the same thing. We started this conversation with regards to the 50 things that we can do and to advance the Bronx, right? And that was the start of the conversation. And I mentioned mental health. And so mental health can take many forms. And justice is one of them, right? That you can go in and you can request what you want. And this is the space that the community has created. So with what we do, it is making sure that community continues to walk alongside with us. And when they tell us, you know what, you don't need to be here anymore, then we need to step aside too, right? So right now they're saying, let's walk along together, let's figure this out together, and let's try to figure out things that are a little bit different. So we're not looking to duplicate any services. We're looking to really have these real conversations with communities so that they can tell us, yes, I want that. No, I don't want that. I mean, we don't even say programming when they come into the center. We do offerings. The reason we say offerings is because programming stays a little bit stagnant, right? You can have a program for a bunch of years and still see certain results, but we do offerings because we change with community. So we will have different things happening in the community, and that's where the offerings come in. So like we had the pandemic, we had to, like everybody else, pivot, and we started to do food. So we have hot meals that we offer during the week. We have, on Tuesdays and Fridays, we have 100 hot meals that we offer on Tuesday, 100 hot meals on Friday. So, and then we have produce. We have organic produce that we give on Thursdays, if I'm not mistaken. And that produce is for families, because we realized we were working with migrant families who can't cook in their shelter. So we needed to provide for both, for our families who have their homes and those in the shelter. So we were providing for both, and we continue to do that. So this has been going on. The hot meals started about a year and a half ago. The bags of produce have been going on for the last, I want to say, almost 3 years now, since the pandemic. It's been that long.
And we have a meal during each course.
That's right.
Okay. So you're going to eat.
Yes.
You got a skill and a plate.
Right.
And it's food to take home. So we always order so that you don't feel rushed to go home and have to cook. So we have enough food so that you can take home.
Yes.
I mean, we're laughing, but the reality is, you know, food is an attention grabber, particularly with food insecurity the way that we see it across New York City, right?
That's right.
That the amount of people who are hungry, undernourished, the ability to sit, eat, once my stomach is right, I can get over here at Kiki's Boutique, but if my stomach's not right, you know, so I think that's it. For yourself, talk to me about going from client to coach. What was that transition like, and what do you feel like you bring to the table?
So I like the transition was pretty easy because I have a passion and a love for doing what I actually do, which is sew. I actually wanted to sew with children, but being that I know it is a little bit more, what's the better word I'm using for, like more
intricate.
Yeah, because they have scissors and pins, you don't want kids hurting themselves. So, but even with being able to do it with adults, it's like almost the same thing. It's the same feeling because they're just like that in itself when they're learning something new. Every time I'm learning, I'm still learning. Like I get around other designers and I might see them do a technique and I'm like, wow. So for me to even feel that, to be able to give it to my community members and to see them have so much joy from it, it's just great for me. So even when I have my own one-on-one clients, I'm raving about my classes that I teach, and they're like, wow, you got to get me in that class. I'm like, you have to be with the community.
Right.
But the transition of it is great. I love it. I love being able to do both. I actually have now a brick and mortar near the FEC Center.
Okay.
Big deal.
Really? Congratulations.
Yeah, I'm happy for that. And the building I'm
Tell
actually
the people
in,
the address. Go ahead.
It's 710 Tiffany Street. It's called Inspirational Point because it's in the Hunts Point area. The actual organization, they deal with creatives. So there's other like creatives in the actual building. There's a lot of things going on there. There's theater, photography, dance, and you're able to rent a studio space, of course, to do the work that you like to do.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I'm happy.
So for yourself, what is it like to be in this place of being this entrepreneur, and at the same time while you're this entrepreneur, you know where you started, right?
Yes.
And now to develop into this entrepreneur, stand on your own, and then be able to give back. What's that like for you?
It's great. I'm always telling my students, even my daughter, I'm a mom, to never give up on anything that you love to do. So the fact that I was able to take my actual craft. It was a hobby, and it became a full-blown business. It's the best feeling ever. The freedom of knowing that I'm doing something that I love and I'm not being pressured to do something that I don't want to do. And then I'm able to teach it to people who are actually willing and wanting to learn it. And then seeing them take off in their own little lanes. Like, it's so amazing when we're at the FEC Center, because the purpose of the course is to learn how to sew. But once they get the gist of how to sew, their creative part comes in, and it's like, oh, I'm going to put this on my bag. I'm going to put this on my shirt. So that alone just excites me, because I'm a creative being. So being able to see that come out of the community members as well, awesome.
Right. Sometimes the value gets missed, right? And I hate to say government, but it is, right? Government, others, because arts and programs are always the first ones to get cut. Not necessarily always recognizing the full value as to what is brought to the table, right? And the lives that are impacted. For yourself, looking at, the lives that are impacted, if somebody said, I want you to make a case for why we should continue to support what you do, what would your answer be?
My answer would be to continue to give to a community that is thriving, right? Not in a deficit. We are continuing to thrive and providing and supporting the community in different forms. So we do the economic, we do the emotional, and we do the family. And in those aspects of the work, we really work at developing a full focus of family support, not just adult support, not just children's support, right? And we are working to continue to engage families in a way that they feel hopeful about their own community. So investing in something like this economic mobility, I look at it as a generational income generator. So if we can continue to generate that income, that dream for community, that is really the best way to continue to engage and grow. So yes, invest in everything, invest in community, invest in the individuals, and invest in continuing to lift up, not just support, but lift up the voices of the communities. Because the other piece that is important in this work is that they do engage in civics. So these are community members that are also members of their local community board. They're also members of their precinct councils. So they're members of their parent schools in the parent groups. So they're engaged in many ways. This is one, and we have several.
And the other part for me, I think, that stands out is that when you have what you do, and it's tremendous, I think there's another takeaway is that doing this work, impacting lives, changing, people don't necessarily, I'm trying to be nice here, but people don't necessarily do this, right? And we live in a society right now, I think that's what the point I was really going to. We live in a society right now where we're pretty individualistic, right? I mean, everybody's to their phone, and we're sitting, and we're this, that, and third. You got a great focus on family that really brings things back home that sometimes is not the focus in mainstream society. So your thoughts on just the whole family component, because in what you're doing, you're already engaged in family.
Yes. Right. So I think I would love to say that we have a wonderful special formula, but I think we went back to a formula that we all had in our community. Knowing the neighbors in our building, right? Knowing, Miss Smith, Doña Petra in the neighborhood, and having her be able to take care of us when mom was not around. And this is what we're developing, because the center closes, right? And when the center closes, then what? So this is an opportunity to continue to rebuild that community and let them know that they know each other. So we've had activities at the center, some offerings at the center, where people have lived in their building for a very long time and didn't meet until they came to the center.
Yes, I did an offering there. So also I customized like Crocs. And we did an offering at the center where we had children and parents come in to do a whole Croc class, which was another great opportunity too for them to now know, like, oh, this lady lives in my building, or she lives down the block from me, and they're all together making Crocs with their children.
That's community building.
That's community building. That's doing what we did a long time ago, and we're now making the effort of doing it again. And I would mention that the work that we do, it stands on the shoulders of a great organization. So you have Windham. So we do have multiple levels of funding to do this work. So going back to your funding question, it doesn't take one funder. It takes multiple funders to actually be able to continue to do this work. So it's been an amazing experience, and we will be going to funders again to continue this work.
Yes.
Right. Well, I definitely want to get people connected. So for people who want to come support or do anything, tell them how they can do that.
So they can either go on the Windham website, and it's Graham, Graham dash Windham, WINDHAM.org. And or Our Place. You can go on Instagram and do Our Place 10474 and find us there.
All right. We want to make sure people get connected. Got to tell them about the boutique before we go. Yes.
So I have a brick and mortar now space, 710 Tiffany Street, and I'm also on social media at official Kiki Boutique, KIKI Boutique, and I have a website at officialkikiboutique.com.
There it is. So you got all of that. So we'll make sure people are connected. And thank you for the great work that goes on at Windham. And we know that you guys are impacting lives. I know about it from years ago. I probably date myself. Out off of Warburton and Yonkers. Years ago, I used to play at the gym.
Nice.
We did that. But great work. Continue the great work, Dr. Lopez. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Chamaine, thank you. All right, I want to let you know we come to the end of the show. Guess what? We hope you enjoyed this week's discussion on the Bronx Social Justice Forum. And if you want to rewatch this week's edition, all you got to do is catch Recablecast right here on BronxNet.org. Now, if you want to join the conversation, present your point of view because you got so much. Yeah, okay. What you do is head over to social media, BronxNet TV, and you can make your comments known. Look, join us next week. We'll continue to elevate the discussion and bring further awareness across the globe. I am your host, Daren Jaime, saying take care, God bless, talk to you soon.